Good evening and welcome to the Edwardsburg Museum Letter Readers event for our current display entitled Letters from Home, Letters from the Front. This current display recognizes the services and sacrifices of the Edwardsburg area's military personnel from the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and the conflicts in the Middle East. Tonight, reading letters from the Civil War, World War I, World War II, and from Vietnam are Chris Graham and Mike Kanabi. Chris Graham was born and raised in Niles, Michigan. His parents transferred him to Edwardsburg Schools District at the beginning of his 7th grade year. He graduated from Edwardsburg High School in the class of 2000. In 2004, he graduated from Cornerstone University with a bachelor's degree in communication arts with a minor in psychology. He went on to earn his master's degree from Andrews University in 2007, majoring in the interdisciplinary studies of communication with an emphasis in secondary education. Chris and his wife, Stephanie, have been married for 14 years and currently reside in Niles. Stephanie is a freelance writer and homeschools their 2 children, Silas 9 and Haley 6. Chris is currently a Focus factory manager for Vista Manufacturing in Elkhart, Indiana. Also, for the past 9 years, he has worked as an online adjunct instructor for Ivy Tech Community College. His other part-time position is being a broadcaster of Edwardsburg sporting events for Joe Insider and soon to be Edwardsburg Sports Network. Mike Kanabi is a career prosecutor with approximately 22 years assistant prosecuting attorney experience. He has been a member of the Kalamazoo County Office of Prosecuting Attorney since January 2001 and is currently assigned to the Circuit Court Trial Division of their office. In July 2007, he was presented with MAD Lifesaver Award for dedication and excellence in prosecution of drunk drivers and providing justice for drunk driving victims. In 2012, he received the Robert Pankel Award, Excellent in Public Service for Kalamazoo County. In August 2019, he once again earned the Mad Life Saver Award for his successful second-degree murder prosecution of Charles Pickett Jr., who killed 5 bicyclists and severely injured 4 others while recklessly operating a vehicle under the influence of multiple controlled substances. Mike's previous experience includes 4 years, working 4 years as an assistant prosecuting attorney in Cass County, Michigan, and serving 7 years in the United States Air Force as an assistant staff judge advocate. In the military, he performed duties such as the Chief of Military Justice, a Chief of Adverse Actions, and later on as an Area Defense Counsel. He was stationed in the Air Force, in Air Force bases in California, at the George Air Force Base in Germany at Ramstein Air Force Base, and in Delaware, Dover Air Force Base. Mike received his Bachelor's of Studies degree from Oakland University in 1985 and a Juris Doctor degree from Thomas M. Cooley Law School in 1989. While attending law school, he interned for Prosecuting Attorneys Coordinating Council and Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan. He has been married to his wife Jeannie for 29 years. They have 2 daughters, Taylor, who is 25, Katie, who is 20, and a son, Jacob, who is 21. He is also the sidekick of Chris Graham's as broadcaster for Joe Insider and soon to be the Edwardsburg Sports Network. Before Chris and Mike start to read the letters, I would like to make a note about the letters being read tonight. We did not edit any of the letters due to the language. You will be hearing their true thoughts, expressions in their own way, and of what the men were thinking and feeling at the time they wrote these letters to loved ones back home here in Edwardsburg area. At this time, I'll turn it over to Chris and Mike.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here tonight and a real honor as well. Mike and I go back about 15 or 20 years, something like that. And it's been a real interesting road getting to know Mike over those 15 or 20 years. Certainly things I will never forget. And always make sure he knows, even though we are 20 years apart in age, he's still a great friend, and very thankful and honored by his service for our country as a captain of the Air Force. And it is a real honor to be able to be here tonight to also share a lot of the local history from some very brave gentlemen who served from our area. First night, I'm going to read the journal entries of Dr. Cyrus Bacon Jr., and this goes back to August 16th, 1861. He entered the service in the 7th Infantry of the Michigan Volunteers as an assistant surgeon, and he became that assistant surgeon on April 16th, 1862, and then resigned shortly, about 3 weeks later, on May 6th, 1862, and we'll kind of cover as to why that is. But we will start back on August 15th, 1861. He says, I received my commission as assistant surgeon of the 7th Regiment of the Michigan Volunteers on August 17th, 1861, which was dated August 15th, 1861. The unit was enrolled upon the United States Regimental Rolls August 22nd, 1861. My prayer is of the Lord's. On August 30th, I returned home on leave of absence of 2 days. Returning in the morning of September 3rd, the regiment rendezvoused at Monroe, Michigan, commanded by Colonel Grosvenor of Monroe, Lieutenant Colonel Winans, and Major Eldridge. May 7th, 1862. I have my orders from Surgeon General William A. Hammond. Surgeon General Hammond, by advice of Surgeon Lewis A. Edwards, directed me, in order that he might enter into a contract with me as a private surgeon, to tender to the Adjutant General my resignation as Assistant Surgeon of the 7th Michigan Volunteers. There was a reason for asking acceptance of resignation. Surgeon General Hammond then, upon the back of my resignation, endorsed the request that it should be accepted as I was wanted for other duties. I think this is an honor. By special order of the 100 War Department, my resignation was at once accepted as it was tendered, and accepted May 6, 1862. May God be my God, and may I be faithfully his servant always, in Christ. June 6, 1862. I received Arabelle's picture and a letter. The picture is very perfect. It is very lovely. Her assurances of the future, I know she is all my heart loves. May she, my Father, be a Christian, and thy blessing be with us. September 13th, I received orders from the Surgeon General to report at Washington. This is my first order as an assistant surgeon of the United States Army. O God, be thou with me. If thou, O Lord, blessest me, then I am blessed indeed. But if thou dost withhold thy blessings, I shall not prosper. Lord, go thou with me for Christ's sake. Do good, and God will bless thee. It's April 4th, 1863. I write a letter to Mr. Knox, asking the consent of himself and his wife to my marriage with Arabelle. I love Arabelle fondly. May God make us very happy together. I continue to whoop during the day, slight however. Pickett returns. How I laugh at Lieutenant Miller about a sudden tympanitis induced by debility, he having given up drinking so profusely. The wind blows very hard today. Sometimes this wind flaps and furls the tent fearfully. A very cold night. I go to see the medical doctor about my cough and about waiting from duty until my cough develops, if it does so. It's April 6th, it's a Sunday. The day is quite pleasant. At a little after noon, I hear a president's salute of 21 guns in the direction of General Headquarters. Then an order comes for a grand review tomorrow. It rains all night, so the order is rescinded, but the brigade will form for the reception of the president who will visit us. I sent a letter to Mr. Knox asking the consent of himself and Mrs. Knox to the marriage of his daughter and myself, saying I had deferred seeking their approval as a justice to themselves for reasons of my health. With their consent and God's blessing, we shall be very happy. Belle is a girl of warm affections and is as good and pure as the flowers of heaven's care. Most fervently, I pray thy blessing upon us, O God. On April 7th, our brigade forms near Major General Sykes Early, and then we see the general and staff ride off to attend the president on his visit to us. It was rather chilly after waiting a long time while chatting with the officers. Major Smith drew a design of the Maltese Cross to be worn by the division. Sitting in Dr. Edward Whittingham's tent, the escort makes its appearance. The brigade had formed 3 sides of a square. His Excellency rode around the square waving his hat. He rode a fine horse in a splendid saddle and was in citizen's dress with a new black frock dress coat. His hair is gray with side whiskers. How very careworn he looks, as though his shoulders could hardly carry so much responsibility and endure. All remark on it. No president had ever the responsibility he has. I cannot resist the impression, in looking upon the intenseness of his face, that he is honest. A face does not belie such a look. It is indelibly stamped upon it. Honesty and integrity are his character. And at such a time as this in our national history, perhaps these are qualities more requisite than shrewd statesmanship or masterly diplomacy. May the Lord give him wisdom. He is as homely as a peregrinating fence rail. General Hooker accompanied him with the general of the corps and also some division commanders of our corps. Also, all the general staffs, their orderlies, and a squadron of Russia's lancers. Quite a body of troops. The regulars are usually taught not to cheer, so he was received in silence, presenting arms most respectfully. The band played Hail to the Chief. I think he was pleased with this reception. He respectfully returned the salute of uncovered heads of a body of men who were near, who were without arms. After passing the 2nd and 3rd Brigades, the 5th New York Volunteers displayed their efficiency in a bayonet drill to him. I presume the whole reminded him of a little joke. Being the regular army is probably a standing joke. And as he passed to Humphrey's division, it is said they cheered well. April 8th. Order for a grand review of our 4 corps by the President. Move at 8 a.m. Some 70 or 80,000 troops were, it is said, to have been a grand spectacle. Mrs. Lincoln attended. It is said she is as handsome as her husband. Returning a long line of troops made a pretty show, extending from near our brigade away upon the hill 1.5 miles. Their flags, guns, and bayonets glisten. Humphrey's column file off to the left and are seen on top of the hill. I write to Bell. My leave of absence for 5 days returns. I think my cough is bronchial and involved, no doubt. Also the larynx. It's June 28th, 1863. In the morning with Adolphus, I ride to the city. We visit Mrs. Elliott's, our former landlady. Aggie has really grown beautiful. We have a nice luncheon with wine. Amelia Mann calls. We have our laugh about and inquiries about Lena and Maggie. Purchase at an Israelite's some articles I needed. On the way back, we learn of General Meade's taking command of the army. The reserves join us here. The rebels' rear guard is said to be at Hagerstown, Pennsylvania. There's an inspection of the troops. The mail came, and I am glad. There were 3 letters from Bell. Official collections, too. June 29th, reveille early. I have some trouble with Holden, who is drunk. We clear him away from the sick report. At nearly 12, we march. We are in advance, and we do not enter into Frederick, but file around to the right of the city, at which the men are greatly disappointed. We get across the fields and by the road to the Baltimore Pike. We cross the Monocacy Bridge. It is a fine structure, and then we keep up the valley on the east side of the river along the range of hills. Spread out by our side is the Monocacy Valley. It has the most fertile soil, wealthy farmhouses, and rich fields of grain and grass. In this central southern portion lies the city of Frederick. And bounding the western slope is the South Mountain Range. The valley is perhaps 8 miles wide and is truly magnificent. I think it is the finest spot I ever laid eyes on. We are told we go in the direction of Little York, Pennsylvania. We camp 3 miles from Liberty, Maryland. Captain McKee skirmishes for something to eat. We have a supper of chicken, and I eat it heartily. It is late, 10 p.m., and I lie down and slept sound as a top. June 30th. I did not hear the reveille. Billings comes and tells me that the general alarm has sounded. As he is sick, I take charge of the 7th and 10th. I rise and attend to the sick, I have breakfast, and I'm on the road a little after 4 a.m. At Middleburg, Maryland, we file off after passing Johnsonville toward Union Bridge. Captain McKee sees a pretty girl who bows to him, says he does not want to look at another girl until he sees one prettier. Being so, I asked him what the name of so pretty a girl should be, and he answered, Belle. Along the way, we returned salutes from ladies as we were a little behind, I having stopped to get the shoes of my horse tightened. Captain McKee and I obtained permission of the Major to skirmish for our dinner. The wheat here is fine. Since the farmers have nearby very large old cherry trees which are loaded, the soldiers, whenever they can get an opportunity, pull the cherries, breaking off the branches. They would soon ruin a tree in this way. I think the men should get sick, seeing how they eat so continually of cherries. McKee and myself go down to a brick house and ask for a dinner. We have a real sound dinner. They would accept no pay. By this time, our command was some distance ahead. We were obliged to take circuit as the picket would not let us pass by the road. Quite a town is here. We pass the division's wagons. An order is issued saying we are approaching the rebels. By a fast ride, we overtake the line. In the meantime, a very hard rain had come up. We have hard, frequent showers much of the day. The road is heavy and we are marching very fast. The men complain very much. It is more than unwise to push men so. 6 miles beyond Uniontown, we encamp on the side of a high hill. Major Arthur T. Lee goes on picket. I had but little for supper. This is one of the frequent occurrences of a march. In consequence, I think I did not sleep well. Rebels left here this morning about 8:30. July 1st, 1863. One is soon exhausted on the low diet, and a breakfast is greatly refreshing. It is here one learns the value of a ration of comfort. I remember, once particularly, I could have little for an early breakfast, and I was weak. I got a lunch of chicken, and the change was almost equivalent to a glass of whiskey in warming the system. We marched to Hanover, Pennsylvania, 6 miles. We had encamped last night near the state line. The Rebs have taken what they wished through here. They unhitched horses from wagons. I saw a reaper destroyed and plundered. A huckster thought to save money from them, $20. So he invested it in a basket of eggs. The fellow took eggs, and with it, of course, the money. They seem to have a special liking to horses. We hear firing in the direction of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Toward evening, we march toward the front. We learn of the fighting of Reynolds' Corps. We pass through McSherrytown towards Gettysburg. How excited the old gentleman by the way is as he shouts and exults over our coming. At about midnight, we bivouac in the streets of a nearby city. 5 miles from Gettysburg, I lie on a veranda. July 2nd, 1863, Battle of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. 5 miles distant in the morning, reveille at 3 a.m., orders to go forward rapidly. After going a little distance, we cross the field and take up a position near or at the extreme right of our line of battle. The 12th Corps are here. I pray, get a cup of coffee about 10 a.m. After pushing forward skirmishers, we finally recross the Baltimore Turnpike. The Corps come out in solid columns, side by side. Adolphus says he is entirely willing to trust in God in any event. May the Lord give me trust in him. In the afternoon, very heavy artillery is heard to the west. We had marched to the road to Taneytown, and upon the top of a rocky hill we lay until cannonading commenced heavily at 3 p.m. Orders to move. We do so right in front. Having gone on the wrong road, we reverse line. Our position on the hill is near the Baltimore Pike, some 1.5 miles back of the cemetery. We march down through the field and toward the wood where we have heard the musketry firing, which is near. Along the road to Taneytown, our column files off to the front. Dr. Wagner near here informs me where the division's hospital is to be and orders me to direct Choicey to it. The hospital is at the stone house at the left of the line and near the knob. The house is the Wenkert House. At about 5 p.m., the regiment goes into action. Soon the wounded begin to pour in upon us, and now all are very busy. I had early ransacked the house and secured operating tables, clothes for dressing. The men had brought down a strange supply of these, among other things a neatly worked lady's chemise. One young lady's discovering it, I would not permit it until something should be to take the place of it, as some of my instruments were already upon it. She gladly supplied its place. The men found some dough, prepared for bread, which was some of it seized and baked by them. I had a lunch off it. It is nearly midnight before retiring, when Dr. Edward T. Whittingham and I would go and lie under an apple tree to get a little sleep. Francis E. Lacey is wounded. July 3rd, 1863. We're up early. I have coffee and fix my table. Operations and amputations and cleanings. Orders to remove the hospital, as there is danger at this point from the enemy shells. They are shelling a battery a few hundred yards to the front of us. We get shelled frequently during the day. It is amusing to see how all the loose men around have disappeared from the hospital. During one of the shellings, Ramsey and I go out and gather the men under shelters from the house and yard. Shells explode near. Horses killed around by the shell or shot. I am engaged in carrying on the operation I began before the shell were falling, and now, of course, the man must be taken care of. I am at work, too, in the shelling and dressing. By evening, the hospital is cleared, and I, with the last mount and an ambulance, proceed to the new hospital. We find it some 2.5 miles distant. Thus far the day, and to the previous days, had been fine. Now toward the night, a storm comes up, continuing much of the night. Not being able, in the dark, to find my men, I slept with Dr. Edward Brenneman. It's July 4th, 1863, Independence Day, and we celebrate by the retiring of Lee's army. They have gone. General Meade follows them early. At the hospital, we are early at work. It's a good day. Colton and Brenneman assist me at the operating table. Colton is tiffed. Rain in the afternoon, and we doctors show the men that we were exposed to it as well as they. We have only the shelter tents, many picked up from. Men too lie on the ground, and the rain soaks all, nearly without exception. The 2nd Infantry is collected in one place so that I can better care for them. At night, having no tent, I sleep on this bed of the operating table. Soon it rains, and I crawl into the ambulance. I find room to sit at its foot, but up so as to be backed. It rains in a perfect torrent, hard all night. Dr. Cyrus Bacon Jr. on March 12, 1864, became a brevet major, and then a few years later, on September 1st, 1868, while en route home to Edwardsburg, Michigan, he died near Springfield, Illinois.
I want to echo what Chris said earlier. We've had quite a relationship. I thought that was awesome that he asked me if I would do this. At first I was a little leery. And then if you like history at all, this is amazing stuff. Not only were I just reading, but then I started to dig into some of the background and look some of the things back up that I had remembered, had forgotten. So there's a different culture of times that we go through. Pretty, like I said, pretty amazing stuff. So hopefully we do it a little bit of justice here today, because it is quite a privilege to be able to read this, especially because it's kind of a lost art, writing letters. I don't think people do that very much anymore. It's the quick text and it's gone, right? So this is just so cool to be able to do. I get the pleasure of reading a letter of Colonel Erasmus D. Thomas from the Civil War Union Army. Quite a strapping, good-looking young man. Especially like the goatee thing there, that's not bad. This letter that I'm about to read was written by Colonel Thomas in January on the 9th of 1863, when he was just outside of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. Colonel Thomas was Ed Gardner's great-grandfather. Dear Bro, yours of the 11th was yesterday. I think he's referring to a letter that he got. And I hasten to reply. We left our camp near Osram on the 27th of December. to move forward upon the enemy at this place. We commenced fighting 3 miles from town on the 30th and fought hard for 5 days, both armies being punished about equally, with no decided advantage gained on either side until the 4th day, when Breckinridge made one of the boldest charges ever known, attempting to capture our division, which was alone, and across the river on the extreme left. He massed a column of troops, about 25 or so thousand strong, and charged across an open field in our front, nearly a mile wide. The enemy troops were so closely massed that the charge was very heavy on a small portion of our line, which of course gave way, as did the 2nd and 3rd lines. But not without desperate fighting, as they fell back across over an open field, which extended a half mile from the river. As soon as the enemy had got most of their troops over the crest of the hill onto our field, our artillery from the opposite bank of the river and the segments of our 1st and 2nd lines, which were not in the direct line of the charge and were now turned around on the enemy's flanks, delivered onto them such a fire as was not dreamed of during the whole battle, and took them most frightfully, and turned them in confusion. Across the field our men pursued them to the crest of the hill, where our 1st line was, and then captured the most of celebrated Washington battery of New Orleans, which had brought up their infantry and was throwing onto our ranks grape and canister by the bushel. It was then night, and our men stopped the pursuit. But the enemy ran on clean through town, truly scared, as well as badly whipped. I was not touched. I have letters from home since we came here. I am afraid the folks at home will be uneasy about me before they hear that I am safe. If the war should ever close and we get home, I am very much in favor of taking a trip with you to see some parts of our country. I wish I could see the faintest prospect of peace. Every time I see the word peace, I look at it as the prettiest word I have ever seen. When will it come? If the war continues long, I don't expect the time. For such fighting as is done now will soon kill everyone. The whole loss in our brigade is 500, about 1/4 of which are killed. I do not know where the enemy has gone to. I hope a good way off. I suppose we will not go on for a week or 2. Our camp is a pleasant one, in sound of the town clock of Murfreesboro. I stay in the adjutant's tent and do a good deal of writing. We have a No. 1 Brigade brass band that stays at headquarters and plays often. There is nothing like it. Please write me immediately. If you have not done it before this reaches you, my health is still good. I am able to stand every hardship. We were, for more than a week, without tents or blankets and in much rain. The weather now is good. Goodbye, Ed Thomas. P.S. Big question mark.
Next up, from World War I, we have Forrest Carruthers. He was an Edwardsburg resident. He owned the Culver's Resort at Eagle Lake and was known as Chick Carruthers. He had 3 daughters, Nancy Smith, the late Pat Went, and the late Margaret Martin. Forrest William Carruthers was drafted into the American Expeditionary Force in 1918. He was deployed to France and kept a journal of his overseas experiences. He was born June 27, 1896 in Syracuse, Indiana. Forrest was 22 when he was shipped overseas the first week of October 1918. Fortunately for Forrest and the eventual Carruthers family line, the armistice was signed on the 11th day of the 11th month of the year 1918, ending World War I, which will help explain some of the comments he makes in his journal. It's October 5th, 1918 at Camp Mills. We're entrained at Garden City, Fort Brooklyn, where we ferried across the East River to Hoboken. We served by the ARC at 3 p.m., and then we boarded the British EI Karen. October 6th, it's 4 p.m., and we steamed by the Statue of Liberty under escort of 10 transport ships and 2 cruisers. October 7th, it's the first day at sea. Everybody feeding the fishes. Several cases of flu aboard. October 8th, second day at sea. Several of our men go to the hospital. Sanitary conditions aboard the ship are rotten. The ship's mess is repulsive, and we eat mostly from the ship's canteen, money running low. On the next day, it's the third day at sea, and I'm ready to land most any place. Sergeant Gardner, along with others, go to the hospital. October 10th, rough sea and cold wind blowing. The boys are still feeding the fishes. October 11th, 1918, we saw the first boat outside our own convoy since at sea. It was a small Swedish fisher. The bugler from the B Company dies. October 12th, 1918, Sergeant Baumgartner died. We are beginning to realize the sad misfortunes of war. October 13th, 1918, had a few boxing matches today on the after whale under supervision of the YMCA, the Knights of Columbus. Baumy was buried today at sea. The Knights of Columbus chaplain rendered a touching sermon, and the KCO acted as pallbearers and on gun squad. October 14th, 1918, submarines are reported in the vicinity. 2 men from the D Company died. The men are buried at sea. We have a funeral of 1 or more every day. I haven't been sick a day yet, with the exception of pains of hunger. The mess is rotten. I am in charge of the mess of 16 men. October 15th, a week has passed, the longest week of my life. October 16th, men are still going to the hospital. Another funeral today and one yesterday. Had another boxing match today. I participated and won a box of candy. We have been compelled to sleep on the decks for the past 2 nights on account of hostile submarines. We were rudely awakened about 11 o'clock last night by 2 dull thuds, which sounded as if something had struck us. Everybody made for the lifeboats. I was sure we had been struck, but it was not our boat, luckily, but a destroyer about a quarter of a mile from us had sighted 3 subs. The 2 reports we heard had taken toll of 2 tin fish. The other one got away. We feel much better now as we've been met by a convoy of 10 warships. We are off the coast of Ireland. October 17th, 1918, we have sighted land and are steaming up the St. George Channel. We will land at Liverpool today. What a grand and glorious feeling to know that we are safe. The last several men who were sick were transferred to the BH at Liverpool. October 18th, after a beautiful ride through England, we arrived at Winchester at 11 p.m., hiked 4 miles to rest camp. Found barracks, first complete rest for 18 days. England reminds me of Toyland. October 19th, 1918, no formations, complete rest. The men's feet were tired and sore. October 20th, 1918, take a bath, get ready for a move tomorrow, but where? October 21st, we arrived at Southampton at 12 p.m. We boarded the boat Maranzette at 6 p.m. and bound across the English Channel in for France. On October 22nd, we crossed the English Channel and arrive at Le Havre at 4 a.m., debark at 10 a.m., arrive at Rest Camp number 2 in English Camp. We've seen many German prisoners. 12 men sleep to a tent about 6 feet in diameter. October 23rd, we left Le Havre at 11 p.m. We marched 5 miles with full equipment, loaded into boxcars, 30 men to a car, rations for 3 days. October 24th, 1918, seeing France à la boxcar. French people are glad to see us. We arrive at Nature, France, and detrain at 8 a.m. We hike 8 miles to the village of Boreas. We We billeted in the hayloft with 25 men: Ed Miller, Hody Madison, Eddie Burns, Bill Miller, and myself in the same bill. October 26th. Everybody's satisfied. We so hope to stay here and train before going up to the front lines. We find it hopping and Belgium here. October 27th. The boys are taking to French wine like fish to water. They're speaking French already. October 28th, 1918. We took a long walk today through the country and saw countless acres of grape vineyards. The next day we had a 10-mile hike to drill field with heavy overseas packs. October 30th, the schedule calls for 10-mile hikes every day with overseas equipment. October 31st, I have a little party of me own today. Bought some beef steak and had a French madame cook it for me. It sure was fine. November 1st, 1918, rain today, no drill, but buku wine. November 2nd, 1918, sign the payroll today, big party ahead. November 3rd, I took a long walk through the country today. Again, buku wine. The next day is payday. Enough said. November 5th, 1918, 5 men decorated, 4 American officers and a private received the DSC. Our battalion attended the ceremony. November 6th, 1918 is the first issue of Cigs and Chocolate today. Something's wrong. November 7th, we went to Nantes in some time in some city. November 8th, 1918, we leave tomorrow for ports unknown, going to have some farewell party. Just a reminder, 3 days later is when the armistice was signed. I think Mike will finish off Mr. Carruthers here for us.
I believe the DSC is the Distinguished Service Cross. Started looking up some of those things as we were going through it, but February 2nd, 1919, Uncle Ike's birthday and Groundhog Day. He didn't see his shadow over here. We went hunting today, had a shot at a fox, but didn't get him. Game is plentiful around here. February 3rd, preparing for a big regiment review tomorrow. General Duncan is going to give us the once over. February 4th, big review was pulled off today. The general was well pleased with our appearance. So I guess we are going home. Toot sweet. Captain Bain left us today. He is a regular Army man. February 5th, drill all morning in the snow. We are having a lot of close order drill now. No formation in the afternoon. On guard tonight. February 6th, on guard today. Had 1 prisoner in the guardhouse. He escaped. Everybody was held for investigation. February 7th, the man that was guarding the prisoner when he escaped has to serve his time, which was 4 months of hard labor. To put that in perspective, for a minute I had to think that through. That was a person on our side that was a prisoner being held, and they let him get away, so somebody paid the price for it. February 8th, too cold for inspection outside. Sergeant Ward and me get a pass. Hike 15 kilometers to Solongay. Arrive just in time for supper. Have boo-coo beefsteak and french fries. Again, a man after my heart right there. Have regular night's sleep in a French bed. February 9th. Got up at 9 o'clock. Have a cup of coffee for breakfast. Get a good dinner and then start a 20-kilometer hike. Stopped in Osay and Pretoy, where we drank a little too much champagne. Arrived back at 10 p.m. Very tired. February 10th. Took a practice hike of 1 hour and then rested. Rested the rest of the day, recuperating from our trip over Sunday. February 11th. Had a big divisional review today. Hiked 24 kilometers. Entire division was inspected by General Black Jack Pershing. It took us 11 hours to make the trip. and we did it on 2 bacon sandwiches. February 12th, Lincoln's birthday. No formation today. Everybody resting up from yesterday. February 13th. Drilled all day in the snow. Word came down now that orders have been changed and that we won't move before the 28th of this month. February 14th. Valentine's Day. My Valentine came in the shape of orders to move again. I have been transferred back to the 321st Machine Gun Battalion. February 15th. Didn't have to stand inspection today on account of being transferred. I don't intend to move though before Monday. I can't see how or good it does moving on a holiday. Top tried to get us to stay. March 29th through April 13th, 1919. The principal events during this period, as I remember, are considerable fair weather, lost of baseball, winning 200 francs on our team, payday, much celebration by the SB boys, confined to the company area from April 4th to April 23rd on account of not being in my billet at TAPS. It wasn't where it's supposed to be when they played. April 12th through April 20th, 1919. Nothing of much consequence has happened during this brief period, except my being confined, and also my old gold bricking as usual. However, today is Easter Sunday, and just when I was feeling kind of downhearted and thinking of how much I was missing by not being home, why, the best news in the world came down to battalion headquarters. And that is that we are going to move to Bordeaux. I am nearly wild with happiness. April 21st, reveille at 5:30. Everybody up and anxious to be gone. Left Les Tourments, 8 a.m. Hiked 30 kilometers to embarkation camp. Arrive about 3 p.m. Tired, hungry, but happy. Hope to leave here early tomorrow morning. April 22nd. Left embarkation camp at 8:45 a.m. Hike 5 kilometers to permanent camp. Start through the mill at 9:30. Emerge from the mill about 1:30. It sure was some ordeal. All clothing was inspected and deloused. Went through a most rigid physical exam. Got a bath and re-equipped. Haircut and a shave. Hope to leave soon for the boat, which was only a few kilos away. April 23rd. Should have left today, but company paperwork was not complete. I will leave tomorrow. April 24th. Another day wasted, and still we have not moved from this camp. Got a letter from Renee today, dated April 4th. Went to see some AEF players in Stop Thief at the Liberty Theater. April 25th. Got a 20-minute notice to move today. Had to roll packs and hike 8 kilometers to the point of embarkation without dinner. Arrived about 1 o'clock and were met by the Red Cross, who gave us 2 big jam sandwiches, a cup of coffee, candy and cigarettes. Believe me, it was appreciated. Went aboard a tug here and went down the river about 35 kilometers, where we expected to board a large boat. Arrived about 4 o'clock and found that a big boat was in dock and was being loaded with soldiers. We were much disappointed when we found out that only 80 men of our battalion could get on this boat. April 26th. Had a good night's rest and am hopeful of getting out of here soon. April 27th. Sunday. Just a week since we started this last big move. It seems that we just can't make the final step. So close and far. We have had a beautiful weather for the past week. April 28th. The camp is called Camp Fighting Bob Evans, named after the above naval officer. The camp originally was a naval aerial station, and there are still many gobs here. Most of them have not been on the water much more than we soldiers. We have barracks in a large aero hangar, which will accommodate about 4,000 men with sleeping quarters. April 29th. 2 tugboats of sailors, the 326th Infantry, pulled into port today. We were glad to see them come. Since now, we have enough for a big boat load and feel confident of moving real soon. Saw a reverse boatload going down the river homeward bound. Gee, but I wanted to be with them. April 30th. Last day of the month, and still our boat has not reached port. We sure are getting restless. About all I do is read. I've just got to do something to keep my mind occupied, and I stopped writing about a week ago. May 1st. Another month begun, and we still linger. Was inspected today by the Port Inspector General. We made a favorable impression, and were told that we would, in all probabilities, embark Monday. May 2nd, 1919. Today is Nellie's birthday. Wrote a letter of greeting. There is much anxiety in camp on account of the development of a number of cases of flu among the infantry in the same barrack with us. We surely don't want to get quarantined now. May 3rd, 1919. Other than the date at the top of this entry, Forrest never completed his entries beyond this point. His last entry on May 2nd mentioned the development of a number of cases of flu among the infantry in the same barrack with us. It's chilling in its implication. Of the U.S. soldiers who died in Europe, half of them fell to the influenza virus and not to the enemy. An estimated 43,000 servicemen mobilized for World War I died of influenza. 1918 would go down as unforgettable year of suffering and death, and yet of peace. That is the end of the journals for Forrest Carruthers. Next, I have the privilege of reading a letter from Private First Class Loyal Lane, Army, former member of the museum, written to his fiancée, Berdine Swider, and this is World War II. And as I came in the door, I saw in the little case up front a couple of Purple Hearts. One of them was for Loyal Lane, so there it was. It like brought it all in for me here. If you know your history, think about the timing of this very carefully, because at the end of the letter there's something that comes home. Tuesday evening, August 7th, 1945. My darling Berdine, the first week in August is now about kaput, 7 days shot. Honey, you surprised me today. I didn't expect mail today and got 3 letters from my dream girl. A July 9th was floating around. Just for fun, I am showing you what I mean. A July 26th, and an August 1st airmail. Boy, that's swell. As old as it was still a fine letter, so we'll mention several things in answer. You were sure happy when thinking I was on my way by June 28th letter. I thought too we were transferring to an outfit ready to shove. I am sorry I wrote. I should have waited to see first before building up such good hopes by writing what I thought, instead of waiting a day or two to see. I also wondered if you ever got the flag, and so today was first, I knew, by your letter. No secret, it came from a crowd house at the end of the war. All of these civilians claim they weren't Nazi, but plenty of flags, uniforms, and photos of Krauts in uniform were in most houses. I never heard yet if the album of snapshots, also the loot, arrived or not. There are low pointers leaving this division almost daily now. Service company I know is getting smaller all the time. They are all going to a replacement depot. I hear them discussing it. Some sure they'll go to the U.S. first. Others sure direct to the CB. Well, I'm afraid many will go direct. I know I would, being my luck, if I had only been over here since December. Yes, you sure got around the day the thrashing was going on. I suppose your name is Mud. Ha! I am sure you were awfully worried. Honey, as active as you are around home, I doubt if you have to worry much about gaining weight. You sure are working harder and keeping busier than I, but my time is coming up. Sure is. I saw a good picture tonight. Twice blessed. Preston Foster, Gail Patrick, and Lion twins. You would have liked it. Then I made a beeline about 3 blocks to the RC Club for sinkers and coffee, and there was a big line. I've pressed clothes, husked corn, but honey, never did I toss oat bundles. However, as a married man, I will probably be doing other things I never did before. Who knows? I might be helping your pop do something on the farm. One never knows. You are ahead of me on the swimming now. As per your August 1 letter, you had been back to the lake for a sailboat ride and swim. I can see how you feel going around alone, as every place there's a man and wife, and you feel a little out of place. Boy, I would be glad to go swimming and all other places with you. It sure irks me when I think of all the wonderful times we could have and the fun we are missing by being separated. Yes, honey, I'll play you a game of ping pong too when we run across the table. I am no champ, but I can bat it around a little. It's quite fascinating, I think. I guess you better make frequent visits back to see Isabel to keep up on the news. That was news, too, about a new Chevy on order. They must be setting pretty good financially. Well, Junior worked steady for a while and at good dough. I have figured we will have plenty to buy, so the Buick will be okay to use until we get organized otherwise. Furniture, place to live, household appliances, and numerous other items. I was really alerted to read about Monica having a letter from the submarine's CO. So it gives us new hope, and there seems a possibility he could be one of the captured crew. Sad as it would be to be a Jap prisoner, that is still a better thought than of him being at the bottom somewhere. Because all prisoners aren't treated so rough. I have read about it. So I am really anxious for any further particulars. The news just came out today about a new atomic bomb tested on Japan. It is unbelievable how destructive it is. And this is for your sidelight of history. This was August 6th, he's referring to the day before Hiroshima. And then 3 days later, Nagasaki occurred, and 6 days after that was the end of the war. He predicts it right here. He says, they claim, and I don't doubt, they will play a big part in ending the Japanese ideas of conquest much sooner than they expected 48 hours ago, according to the 9 p.m. broadcast. An early end to that would certainly change all the shipping problems and get the boys home a lot quicker. Pete, if he goes, is getting in at a poor time, unless he is lucky enough to not get training and shipped out before it's all over. That will surely put the hotel business out. And between you and I, they have their necks stuck out to the extent of $17,000. I am afraid Shirley won't have the patience you and so many have had for so long. She will probably think Pete's the only one in. They are the only ones hurt, if I know her. But maybe I'm wrong and hope so. Well, my sweet, it's good night and better news is coming. So long and a lot of love, darling. Loyal.
All right, next up, also from the World War II era, is Lieutenant Edward T. Gardner, who was the father of the museum member Ed Gardner. This letter from Lieutenant Edward Gardner of the United States Army Air Force was to his sister, Mary Jane Gardner, dated February 19th, 1944. Dear Sis, received your Christmas card and your Valentine and your letter. Been a little too busy to write, but I have a short lull in the war for me. How's your job going this spring? You must be earning nearly as much as I am. How you talk. Who ever said you were homely? If you take a good, healthy squint at the mirror, you'll surprise yourself with your good looks. You shouldn't have to work about dates, but I'll admit the men at home now are either too young or too old. Thanks for the letters and the cards. See you soon, God willing, your brother, Edward. I think he and I would have got along. The youngest of 6. I could have used some of that. That's good. Albert Bacon was the great-great-grandson of Cyrus Bacon and the great-nephew of Cyrus Bacon Jr. and the half-brother of former museum member Marjorie Fedorowski. This is a letter from Army MP Albert Bacon, an Edwardsburg resident, to his mother on Christmas, December 25th, 1944, from Paris, France. Dear Mom, having a swell Christmas. Came in from a trip last night to find 4 packages, 2 from you, and 1 from Dick and Addie, and the other from Beckman's. My cap came, though, after 5 months. It seems small. I guess I must have a big head. Anyway, it is small. For dinner, we had turkey and dressing, potatoes, blackberry pie, peas, bread and butter, and coffee. They said we could have a Mademoiselle guest for dinner, so I picked me up one. Took her home and met the family, Mama, Papa, and 2 small brothers. She's the oldest in the family and works in an office for one of the stores. Going back tonight if I can get a pass. Don't get any wrong ideas about Mademoiselle. Their ways are too different from ours. The news is plenty black today, as you have read in the papers by now. There's a lot for MPs to do right now. I'm glad the car is running good yet, because I know how it would be if you were tied in the Berg. The Argus came yesterday to my surprise, a month old, but it sure seemed good to read news anyway. You say Plucky is in Belgium. Well, I was up there last week. Pete Galehouse is lucky to be at Irwin, California. In spite of the desert, it would beat Paris because it's in the U.S. I'm proud to see that Marge was in the junior play. I can't believe she's a junior already. Time sure flies. Did Fanny win anything at bingo? I've been sending the letters by airmail because letters seem to come from home a little faster. I get letters from Thelma sometimes in 12 days, and I don't like to read V-mail letters. Well, I hope you are okay, Albert. Last one I have here is from First Lieutenant Robert J. Falcoman, who is the father of museum member Barbara Falcoman Dempsey. And this is an article, I believe, from the Elkhart Truth. The title of the article is Flyer's 7,000-mile mission covers good share of Europe. A modern odyssey that would make the travels of Ulysses look like a walk around the block in comparison has been recorded by the B-17 Flying Fortress crew of 2nd Lieutenant Robert J. Falcoman, 28-year-old Elkhart pilot. Lieutenant Falcoman is the son of Mr. and Mrs. Fred C. Falcoman of Elkhart, Route 3, and his wife Mary Maxine and daughter Barbara Lee. They live with their parents, Mr. and Mrs. Samuel Oakes, on Route 5. Details of the memorable flight were received by the Truth from the Public Relations Office at Lieutenant Falcoman's 8th Air Force Bomber Station in England. In 15 days, Lieutenant Falcoman flew his big bomber, M for Mary, nearly 7,000 miles alone to complete an 8th Air Force bombing mission, which began as a shuttle attack from England to Russia. During the long solo flight, the Indiana Flyers plane landed in Russia, Asia Minor, North Africa, Italy, and France, before dropping down again in England. Badly battered by Nazi flak, while his formation was delivering battle supplies to Polish patriots fighting the Nazis in Warsaw, Lieutenant Falcoman's plane was forced to remain in Russia for repairs when his group took off for Italy. He and his crewmen were guests in a Soviet city when the populace celebrated the first anniversary of its liberation from the Germans. En route back to England, they visited his historic sites in Iran and North Africa, spent 2 days in Rome and a day at Marseille, France. Lieutenant Falcoman holds the Air Medal. Before his entrance in the Air Forces, he was employed by the Central Welding Company. He was commissioned last February 8th at Moody Field, Georgia, and went overseas this summer. Next we have a Western Union telegraph to Mrs. Mary Falcoman. The Secretary of War desires me to express his deep regret that your husband, First Lieutenant Robert J. Falcoman, has been reported missing in action since 24 December over Germany. If any details or any further details or other information are received, you will be promptly notified. From J.A. Ulio, the Adjutant General, Battle. This is a letter from Lieutenant Falcoman's chaplain, Daniel Lenahan. Dear Mrs. Falcoman, since you've already been notified by the War Department that your husband, First Lieutenant Robert J. Falcoman, is missing in action, the Commanding General of the 8th Air Force has requested me to write you. The Commanding Officer of the 390th Bombardment Group and all your husband's friends and acquaintances, among the officers and enlisted men, and also myself, wish to offer our sympathy at this time of trial for you. The Catholic officers and enlisted men of this base have opportunity to receive general absolution and viaticum before each combat mission they go on, so that they are prepared spiritually for any eventuality. Your husband was very faithful to his religious duties. He received the sacraments frequently and was a member of our Holy Name Society. You can rest assured that your husband will be in God's hands wherever he is. Each Monday, I offer Mass for all the men who were killed or missing from this base, that God will look after them no matter where they are. You yourself must have recourse to prayer at this time of trial. It is the only way you can really help your husband. The Adjutant General in Washington will advise you of any change in status as soon as such information can be released. We here at this post do not know any more than you do about your husband. In fact, you will find out sooner than we will about any change in your husband's status from Washington. May God bless and keep you in this time of trial. Your husband's chaplain, Daniel Lenahan. That dated December 31st, 1944. On December 2nd, 1946, there is a letter from Francis M. Hawthorpe. It says, My dear Mrs. Falcoman, the President has requested me to inform you that the Purple Heart has been awarded posthumously to your husband, First Lieutenant Robert J. Falcoman of the Air Corps, who sacrificed his life in defense of his country. The medal, which you will receive shortly, is of slight intrinsic value, but rich with the tradition for which Americans have so gallantly given their lives. The father of our country, whose profile and coat of arms adorn the medal, speaks from it across the centuries to the men who fought for the proud freedom he founded. Nothing the War Department can say or do will in any sense repair the loss of your loved one. He is gone, however, in honor and in goodly company of patriots. Let me, in communicating to you the country's deep sympathy, also express to you its gratitude for his valor and devotion. Sincerely yours, Francis M. Hawthorpe.
I told Chris when he had to read that, those telegrams that were sent out by the War Department, I understand why those were so, they seem so brutal, and there's a couple movies that have addressed that issue on how we have now changed our way of notifying people, but it was quite the reality check. We are in the home stretch here. There's 2 folks left. okay? This is, we're going to move time periods now. We're going to come to the Vietnam era. This is from the Navy Communications Yeoman 3rd Class, Eric Singley. He wrote this letter to Judy Powell, now Singley, a museum member, on August 3rd, 1967. There is an excerpt from his letter, and then there is actually a historical account of what he references in here that I'll read after that. The excerpt from the letter states, "I imagine you know all about the Forrestal by now, or should I say what the papers disclosed? Well, the old kid had to watch when it all happened. Talk about hell, it sure was. Was running the Annapolis. She's a communication ship, and she was out there. She took most of the Forrestal's traffic and relayed it to us. Hell, I was snowed. Had to work my ass off. I didn't have to read a newspaper to find out what happened. I knew as it was orders first. So you be the first to know. Lucky you." And this is the historical witness account of the USS Forrestal fire as accounted for by Eric Singley, Communications Yeoman 3rd Class. "I was stationed for 18 months at the Naval Communication Station at San Miguel, Philippines, and was on duty the day of July 29, 1967. My job was to run teletype communications from ship to ship and ship to shore. That day I was running the USS Annapolis, a floating communications ship stationed in the Gulf of Tonkin off Vietnam. Aboard the USS Forrestal, pilots and planes were lined up ready to launch the second sortie of the day when an electrical power surge caused a Zuni unguided missile to launch. Shortly afterward, we received word over the bitch box to stop all traffic to the Forrestal because she was on fire. I thought to myself, I sure am glad I'm not running the Forrestal. But soon found out that the Annapolis was taking all the traffic she could take from the Forrestal and relaying it to me. At one point, the operator of the Annapolis sent me 25 top secret flash messages, and I turned around and sent him another 30. All hell had broken loose, and I would be on watch for 24 hours because they didn't want to change operators until the situation was stable. The fire quickly spread after the Zuni rocket hit a fuel tank on the plane next to the A-4 Skyhawk, piloted by future U.S. Senator John McCain, causing a chain reaction of explosions and intense fire. In less than 2 minutes, the jet fuel spread across the deck, igniting 2 more 1,000-pound bombs. Chief Aviation Boatswain Mate Gerald Farrier led his highly trained Control Team 8 into the fray. Unfortunately, as they were spraying the fuel fire with foam, another exploding bomb killed the whole team. The backup team readied and took up the fight, but another explosion killed them as well. With both teams gone, the firefight was under general quarters, meaning every sailor available fought the inferno. The fire spread quickly across the deck, causing more explosions, leaving holes in the flight deck and spreading into the compartments below. A total of 134 men were killed outright, and 161 more were wounded. Of the 71 aircraft aboard, 21 were destroyed, and 40 more damaged. The investigation stated outdated Korean War-era bombs had been loaded on the deck to use in the bombing raids. What they didn't know was the metal had been compromised due to age and storage conditions, causing the bombs to be unsteady and easily detonated. The Forrestal fire was the worst since World War II and led to several changes made by the U.S. Navy. All aircraft carrier ships company were sent to advanced firefighting school in San Diego. Methods learned from the Forrestal are still being used today to train and retrain active crews. you want more information, you can actually go to like Wikipedia or something. There's a whole lot of stuff out there. Not that I'm a big fan of Wikipedia, but it's pretty accurate. Next I have 2 short letters from Army Captain Michael Thompson. He was a helicopter pilot from Paradise, Michigan. This is during the Vietnam War era. He was Gene Montgomery's fraternity brother at Adrian College. Who knows where Paradise, Michigan is, by the way? Anybody?
In the Upper Peninsula.
UP, there you go. Yeah, it's not on the little hand that you put up. It's between Sault Ste. Marie and Marquette. A long ways away. So here we go. 16 July 68. Military way of doing the dates, by the way. Dear folks, things going pretty good. I have about 65 hours flying time and keep busy all the time. I was appointed investigating officer of company and had to investigate a $480 loss at our enlisted members club. Also, I have been assigned the duty of unit fund officer, custodian, which I don't officially take over till 1 August. We have started building our huts, or hooches as we call them, and now have the concrete slab poured. We borrowed a cement mixer from the unit down the road and got the cement for doing a little flying off-the-record service. Last night we had a couple of rockets come into Lockheed, but were about as effective as 2 small firecrackers. Wasn't over an hour before the Air Force had put on a 3-hour B-52 strike. When they drop those big ones, you and everything else shakes. Only problem I have over here is the heat and trying to adjust to cold shower and shave. That is when we are lucky enough to get them. The water pump has been broken. I ran into a buddy of mine in the infantry unit down the road from us. His name is Russ T. Jones from Birmingham, Michigan. We went to college together 2.5 years. Our fraternity brothers went through basic training and AIT together and love to kid the devil out of each other. He has been over here 7 months and has been nominated for the Silver Star. On 11 July, we had a Korean GI show here at the Sherwood Forest, home of the Robin Hoods. Don't get the idea that these shows go to the GI for nothing, because they don't. This little floor show cost the unit $600 for 2.5 hours of entertainment. I don't have to fly today, so we'll spend a couple of hours on my case, and the rest of the day working on the sandbag bunker. They have several bunkers already built, but we are now working on emergency bunkers in each tent. It has been raining quite a bit, turned our rubber plantation into a mud hole. Could use a care package of food from home, exclamation point. Also, if you could send me my UCMJ, that's the Uniform Code of Military Justice, their legal book, another little blue book on court-martial and defense counsel, and the material I have on Army accommodation medals. These must be in my file. Must go for now. Love, Michael. P.S. Tell all I said hi. This is the 2nd letter this month, so I don't feel I am slipping. Just want you to know everything is okay, in case you didn't get the 1st letter. Then we're going to jump now forward to September 6th, 1968. Dear Mom, Dad, and Gang, hope you aren't too impressed by the news clipping. This little event took place on my first in-flight in-country. Actually, all we did was report a couple of GIs who needed a little help. Really like the gun platoon. Don't do as much flying as lift platoons, but the guns make up for it. We are putting in 16 to 20 hour days, which gives us about 10 hours actual flight time. Only one excuse for not writing: too busy. Received your big box of 3 cans of cookies. Outstanding job. They came in about 6 days oven fresh, and not one of them was crumbled. No need to send any more V8 juice, because I can't stand it. Would appreciate some tea, iced tea, instead of V8 juice. Got a card from Pat and Missy while they were in Maine. Must be nice. I have several letters to return if I ever get time to jot a few lines. Yesterday, my aircraft commander and I were flying on a combat assault mission when we spotted a tank explode. 2 GIs were seriously wounded and needed medical attention ASAP, as soon as possible. We flew into their position and picked them up. We had to dump 11,000 rounds of ammunition plus 28 rockets on the ground before our ship could get off the ground. We had them in front of the best medic evac hospital 8 minutes after the accident. I understand it saved one of the boys' lives. Things were quiet at Lockheed. All the trees within 2 miles of our perimeter had been cut down. Would take several hundred VC to even think about overrunning Lockheed. Time going real fast, especially since we are kept so busy. 9.5 months to go. How about the Tigers? Would like to see them in the series with St. Louis, but would be satisfied if they just topped the American League. Side note, Tigers, St. Louis, we won. Does Dad ever play golf after school? Is he able to hit low 70s yet? Again, I want to thank Mom and Bridget for the care packages. Keep them coming. Love, Mike. P.S. Don't worry about me. Things aren't as bad over here as TV makes it sound. By the way, I can still get my Coke with ice at our officers' club. That thing about the TV, I remember growing up and actually watching some of that. My parents kind of ushered us away from it because it was so negative, the reporting. On March 21st, 1969, Army Captain Michael Thompson died through non-hostile action, an air crash on landing of the aircraft he was in. That's sad. But that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yay, we wound it up. Well, thank you, Chris and Mike, for reading the letters and bringing them to life and giving a little bit more meaning than just our feeling, rather than just reading them to ourselves. But when they were reading Loyal Lanes, or when Mike was reading Loyal Lanes, for those of us who knew Loyal, you could really, you could see him and feel him reading that letter. I mean, it was pure Loyal through and through.
Right.
I just want to remind everybody too that this display is on for view until July 3rd, and then we change displays. And the museum hours are Tuesday through Friday, 1 to 4 p.m., Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and we're closed Sunday and Monday. So please stop by the museum to see our letters from the home front display if you can. We appreciate that. Thank you for letting us give you this opportunity of hearing letters from our local veterans. Thank you.